How are you? Welcome to Coffee Time with Michael. I'm still working on a title. That title came from a viewer, which I greatly appreciate. I think there's something there, so I got to work on it. Anyways, really, what this series is about is daily updates, daily discussions, thoughts, whatever you want to call it, on the financial market. I basically spend the first hour or so reading various articles and headlines while I enjoy coffee. And then I take my thoughts and share them with you. If you've only started watching, really what I am looking to understand is what is going on with the consumer. I believe the consumer is frankly the largest competitor in what I do, and that is buying rental properties because they are the owner occupants. They can come in with lower down payments and frankly pay more. And so I watch what they're doing. Are they fearful or are they greedy, right? So that's the one thing I do, and then I look for cost of capital, right? Because I try to figure out where the cost of capital is going because in my business of real estate, that is often the most expensive part over the long term. So that's what we do on this channel and on this particular series. So today, I thought I'd start off with a pretty hot topic, at least when you look at YouTube and other things. Is what am I deducting on taxes this year? Everything that I can. Everything that my accountant will allow me to do it and not go to jail. So thoughts on Robinhood. If you don't, I don't really know Robinhood other than they were the first to come out with zero cost to trade, which now has been copied by Charles Schwab and others. So they were leaders on that. I know they're headquartered in Menlo Park, but that is the extent of what I know about them until over the last 2 weeks or so, folks have figured out a loophole where you can get into Robinhood for a couple of $1,000s. You could answer a series of nothing questions, what's your experience level and things of that nature, and then basically get into a margin account where you could buy stocks and start selling options and basically lever up as much as possible. I have seen reports of people doing this to a tune of a couple hundred grand. And I saw a video yesterday where another YouTuber, Graham Stephan, interviewed someone who took this leverage to an insane level of $1.3 million. So, frankly, here are my thoughts. So, first off, the loophole shouldn't have existed. It's clearly an error, and it needs to be addressed if it's not already addressed already. So, let's get that off the table. But there seems to be a general impression by the folks who have exploited this loophole that says basically, hey, not my fault. Robinhood, you take care of it, and whatever. And this is coming from the people that have reported and actually taken screenshots of these crazy losses. Right? They put in 2 grand or 15 grand or whatever it is, and in a matter of days, they're down hundreds of thousands of dollars. And again, the loophole shouldn't have been there, right? Whatever, right? This is just my opinion. But there seems to be a general feeling like, oh, sorry, ha, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or let me run away. And that's kind of like these eighth place trophies, right? If you take the risk and you take the leap, um, you should pay the price. Now, I would think, right, in saying that, if the trade had worked out, I fully expect you to take the reward as well. Like, there's the other side. If these ridiculously leveraged and single day plays worked out, then you should reap the rewards. But to sort of sit back and think that, oh, Robinhood should eat the loss and all of that is doesn't sit well with me. Again, the loophole shouldn't have been there. It shouldn't have been allowed. All of those things are very well documented. But if you're going to go in and you're going to gamble, which all these folks were doing was gambling, right? One person thought Apple's shares were going to miss, so they bought some shares and they sold all these options and they just kept levering up to a couple hundred grand. And then of course Apple beat expectations and stock went up, so this person lost everything in a second, right? So I just think It's very much like the dot-com thing, right? Where everybody was chasing something and then it went the other direction and you lost. And I've admitted it many, many times that I was one of those persons that, won and then lost very quickly. But I didn't look for someone to come bail me out. It was my choice, my thing. I lost. I took the tax write-off for many years, right? If you don't know, you can only write losses of stock off $3,000 a year. There's a cap. At least there was when I did all this 20 years ago. So I um I think the Robinhood loophole is clearly shouldn't exist. But I think if you take the risk and knowingly take the risk, that's what these folks did. They read a Reddit post. They saw how they could leverage up to hundreds, if not millions of dollars, and they went all in on some bet that at least the couple I've seen didn't make sense, and they lost big time. So in the end, that's my thoughts on that. Let's flip gears to something more positive. Get away from that. PayPal CEO, actually says that because he has access to their 300 million users, and he says based on the payments and whatnot they're seeing, um, Troy, I'm sorry, you have a 30 plus year write off going now. It's beautiful. Yeah, I know what you mean. Um, the PayPal CEO is saying that there's no recession coming because again he has access to the 300 million users that use the PayPal service, and he's saying there's generally optimism and purchases and transfers of money and all of that seem to be heading in the right direction. So um, again, it makes sense, right? The CEO of PayPal kind of has access and can trend data probably by the minute, if not second, around the world. So it would make sense that they could see the big data and see where the flow, greed versus fear is. So you have to trust him at that, because he wouldn't be saying it otherwise. I don't think. I don't think there's any upside to him lying. At least not that I can think of. So I think that's pretty cool. I think generally speaking, we have seen a lot of optimism the last month, if not 6 weeks, and that's probably rippling through in the data. So, lots of things could break in the next year or so, but I don't think a recession is likely unless the trade war blows up, unless this impeachment thing goes some unexpected way. Um, there's a couple. The Brexit could cause a Europe, implosion of trade and whatnot. But all those things seem to be going the right direction. So we will see, and then we'll see what happens in the election cycle, because that could be fun to watch, and see what happens in November or October next year. So what else? The Fed, right? Powell, right? I don't know if you guys saw the executive branch yesterday was on TV whining about lower interest rates and whatnot. And Powell basically came out today and said, "Stop it, you big baby. We're not lowering rates until if growth continues." Which I have to agree with them, right? I thought the last cut was a little extra. Hey, Eric, morning from morning from Mountain View. How are you? So the Fed is not going to lower rates unless growth stalls, which I don't see. Again, I just said, and I think it's true that the economy is going to be generally strong heading into next year. But also that means rates are low, right? If you're doing real estate investing, for example, go get that 30-year money, because rates just can't stay this low. We are going to have an inflation cycle at some point, and owning assets that have the positive winds of inflation, meaning value and rent, with fixed rate debt, is going to be a powerful combination. Next up, looks like Nike is going to stop selling directly to Amazon. I didn't know this was a thing, but apparently Nike had a test project going on since 2017, where they were selling some goods specifically directly to Amazon, and then Amazon would sell. Um, and they're going to stop that, right? Their new CEO came from eBay, so it kind of makes sense that they want to be more control. Nike is very brand conscious. Um, Fun side fact: if you ever get to go to the Nike headquarters, which I've done several times, they have a huge Nike store. That's awesome. If you've ever been there, it's awesome. Anyway, sorry, sidetrack. Then something else I didn't know is Nike sells 30% of its annual business direct to consumers via their stores and online. So that surprised me it was that high, because I've always thought of Nike as being kind of shelf space, sort of like a grocery store. But yeah, they've done a great job going direct to consumers. Next up is Paul Tudor Jones talking about an explosive combination heading into next year. I think he's right, right? The market, all the general optimism. I documented it the last 6 to 8 weeks on these daily updates. Kind of feels like we're heading, everything's coming up aces, if you will, or everything's heads, or whatever your bet is. Which really could mean we're going to go higher, lower rates, trade war, tax cuts, all those things. But anytime everything goes one direction, I get nervous. And while we could have an explosive pop up, right, a melt up, as they say sometimes, it could lead to a rather large crash if things start going the other direction. So this could be the time to get conservative, trim your portfolio, and really decide what you want to keep. Into a melt up or an explosive pop, I don't think it's time to go all in. You would think most of the profit is already there. So I would be, I'm always conservative, but I'd be extra conservative. And again, as I say several times a week, I'm not a stock guy. I own no stocks. You have no reason to listen to me for stock advice. You have market risk, sector risk, and company risk, and that's too much risk for me to figure out. Next thing, two more things I saw today. Google's getting into checking accounts. How does that make sense? When I first read that, I'm going, okay, are they trying to diversify so they don't have antitrust violations whenever that comes? Or are they trying to be, trying to do no harm and help people? Or are they just getting so big and in so many things they're going to have antitrust? So it was just really, really weird. They are partnering with Citigroup and Stanford Federal Credit Union to do this, so they do have banking entities and ties to this. But I don't know why that makes sense. And I mean, I could see doing it for your employees, maybe. Um, I'm just not sure what Google is going to bring to checking accounts. But they've surprised us before, so we'll see what they have to do. And then lastly, I read an article that interviewed recent college graduates. And one of the things that came from that are the five least least liked graduate degrees. So these are, again, college graduates. So they got a degree in this major and they're like regretting it. So the five degrees that college graduates regret. That caught my attention. So first off, English or a foreign language. They're saying there's limited opportunities. Probably teacher, right? Would be the opportunity. Physical science. I'm guessing that's PE in my high school. They say it's hard to find jobs without more advanced degrees and or licenses. Makes sense, right? You're working on people's bodies, if you will. Physical education. I get it. Education. Low pay, no job satisfaction. Ouch. Social science. To get a job worth anything, you need more degrees, and there's limited job opportunities. And lastly, communication. Too general. Which I thought was pretty interesting as we go into this, new decade. 2020 is right around the corner. I would have thought an English and a communications degree would be more interesting, especially in this social media world with all these platforms. But I guess not. Maybe it'll change next decade. I don't know. But at the end, English, physical science, education, social science, and communications are the most regretted college degrees. So if you are a parent watching this and you have one of your kids thinking about that, you might want to pull out that article and see if it could help them change their mind. All right, so that's the first attempt at Coffee with Mike. Our daily updates. I'm trying to figure out a name that fits. Let me know if you have one. Leave the comments below. And of course, have a great. Thanks.